getready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk, as we have some people already gathering over there, dropping their 2 cents, or at least the high in the wave, like Ida Basic Gardner is, along with also dropping that like and react. Monica Cervantes, do appreciate it. And that's one of the better ways you can, of course, communicate with us throughout the whole progression of the show by commenting over there. We can pop them up on screen for most of those platforms. Anyway, Twitter or X, whatever, is still its own weird thing. And Ida Basic Gardner also noting, hearing some thunder out there. We do have, again, not trying to become y'all's weather station, but some information from our news partners at KFOX 14 in the forecast that, yeah, we're in for it before we get right back into that heat for the rest of this week. So, I don't know, I think it was John out there that was very excited. Again, I'm surmising that he's got some shares in air conditioning companies. Don't worry, you'll be right back to business and that demand here before too long. But yeah, getting a little bit of that. I mean, okay, it's the kind of thing, this has been my experience, that I go outside and I find that the vehicle parked in the parking lot has just got wet enough just to kind of mess it up and make it all dusty, that splotchiness. So that's the extent of the major rain. I mean, we've had other things going on in and around town, but that's been it's not enough to quite, I mean, I probably should go get car wash, but for the most part, it's just been annoying. So that's what I've been dealing with. But we got a lot of other things going on and affecting us directly here in the borderland as well, including a bunch of issues happening right here in the borderland region or affecting us directly, including some more interesting things, or at the very least, some notes about what is happening in our region. Of course, immigration, border security, never too far from headlines or news in our region, and particularly now there's been maybe not more scrutiny, but certainly a lot of things going on when it comes to either legal challenges, issues with it, coverage of it in the border security and immigration space, including El Paso County joining a letter to send something to the governor over border policies, but also there may be now being some challenges to that, and including what actually was going on with the enforcement both in our region and across the entire border sector. We'll delve into that. So both, I guess you could call it state and federal challenges in maybe not equal measure, but certainly both in their own way. Then, of course, one interesting thing that we didn't talk directly about, but apparently has already been pretty well resolved, I guess would be the way to put it, about physical education in one of El Paso's biggest school districts. And, well, it's sticking around for a while longer. We'll talk a bit about that. Also, some other things going on, particularly in the state capital, and, well, just a lot going on there. And, of course, some of those issues with access. We mentioned all the ways that you're able to tune into us, but in the increasingly connected, or more accurately, required to be connected world, those being left behind includes quite a lot in our community. So talking about an effort and an upcoming meeting that will be the focus of broadband, so therefore shorthand high-speed internet access and availability of it in our not just community but also the region as a whole. So we also have Eric von Holstein-Rathlow with in order shades on, thumbs up, wave. Appreciate that. Cool to tune in as well. I don't know if that's the correct interpretation, but it's the one I'm going with. So, and there's a whole lot in between all of these things as well that we'll certainly be talking about in Amber Bondo with the Rock On. Do appreciate it. And we'll keep rocking and rolling with all the things that either go on or affect us here in the borderland because, I think we deserve it. That's the first thing of our dual ongoing missions. Definitely want to keep talking about the things going on here because no one else is going to have that conversation. Talk about those things in the way they impact us right here, and the people who live here, work here, raise their families, do their jobs, all of those things have to deal with it, and some of the issues we come up with in our region, kind of like that broadband access thing as a microcosm example. So that'll be your interview today with Eric Pearson, President and CEO, don't want to shortchange the title there, with the El Paso Community Foundation, about that upcoming effort and how you can get involved, even if you are amongst those that are the dispossessed of the data that is basically becoming a modern required utility. I don't know how long it's been that anyone searching for a new house, what's that tip that used to be a trick that has now become standard? You better be checking the signal and or the Wi-Fi wherever you're looking to move, because that's going to dictate your life in a whole lot of ways. Yeah, that's a thing. Modern world keeps marching on, but so a lot of stuff going on here, including some not so fun things like another case of West Nile virus, second one for this season, being referred to and found in the city of El Paso, which is, okay, I feel like we've been dealing with this for since I was a kid, I'll just put it this way. But of course, the recommendations to wear bug spray and make sure to deal with standing water around your property. And just one note from our news partners at KFOX 14, they have announced finally that the replacement or the next co-anchor is going to be Liz Duecki. I think I'm saying that one right after I had heard them say it on there. Yes, will be starting in August. So joining, among other things, in the with Robert Holguin, we do get those news updates from, among other things. So speaking of immigration and border security issues, a curious incident happening as of this afternoon in downtown El Paso, with a crash involving a Sun Metro bus and a U.S. Customs and Border Protection bus again, Wednesday afternoon, happening, I guess, around noon. There was one person taken to the hospital, but of course, the appearance and presence of the vehicles, I mean, it's not exactly an unfamiliar sight within the community as a whole. In fact, I cannot think of most days that I've ended up seeing something going on, whether it be closer to the border itself or in the places that I'm going around, or even just Border Patrol vehicles exist throughout most of the parts of this community. So the fact that there was that crash is unfortunate, but does lead to a couple other questions and other situations going on more broadly about what the response is being required. Of course, always direct people to, whenever we're talking about this in the local area, what can be seen from the elpasotexas.gov/migrant-crisis and the Migrant Situational Awareness Dashboard, the data collated and presented there by, of course, again, the city of El Paso, pasotexas.gov, and still showing some, I guess it would be argued as maybe a slight uptick, and I do mean slight, as opposed to like last week, 669 encounters is a 7-day rolling average, and the most recent week, 718, and some of the in custody has seen a bit of a dip, 2,000, let's call it 2,400, as opposed to about 2,800 and a half in the previous week. But there are still questions about this, and some specific reporting, specifically referring to here from the Texas Tribune, their article titled "Border Arrests Surged in July, a Blow to Border Migration Plan." Subtitled, "Apprehensions on the U.S.-Mexico border plunged in June after the administration's new policies took effect, but rose more than 30% in July." Reporting there happening from some also national sources there. So that 30% going specifically that there was more than 130,000 arrests along the entire U.S.-Mexico border sector. So not just ours, but of course us seeing a portion of that in the last month, up from just under, let's call it 10,000, or 100,000 at the zero there in June. And also there was about 50,000 crossings in additional through the CBP One app and the appointments being made with that. So it's interesting that particularly one of the hotspots being noted by the article was in southern Arizona, despite them having the real, and I mean real bad temperature. We've been unhappy with our triple-digit plus streak that we are going to go back to building, it does seem like, right after this interlude with all of the weather and such. And I'm getting information from other people listening as well that, they're seeing it in their neck of the woods, seeing, rain and thunder also happening, I guess, on the west side, not too far from my neck of the woods specifically. But it's just getting some notifications about that. But so the fact that that was going on primarily in southern Arizona is very interesting. Noted specifically, highest 1 month total for the Tucson sector in 15 years, with more than 40,000 arrests in July, according to CBP data. They are saying that this is lower than the levels recorded in the months before May 11th, when again Title 42 had its final swan sung after it took a while to get to that whole point. There is still other questions about, well, has it been enough? Again, the administration touting, among other things, about, that 70% drop in illegal crossings or illegal attempts into it right after their measures came. And there was arguably an effect coming from that. Again, that about 42% in June, but not, essentially being blanked out by what has happened in the recent month. Now, of course, we're hearing plenty of reports of the CBP-1 app being widely utilized, but we're, of course, no stranger here in our area to there being those other issues, those other things going on, the still, I don't know, the smuggling attempts, the stash houses, the what I call the rabbiting, or some of those crashes even going into the Rio Grande as of recently. And so I dare not say that those are necessarily a semblance of the uptick, because those are isolated, individual incidents in their own, and so getting pretty close to the level of anecdotal data, but fitting into the possibly this whole larger issue of, are these policies working or not? And really, that also plays into, of course, that visit to the Juarez side of the borderland, the Ciudad Juarez visit from the ambassador to Mexico from the United States, saying about, okay, does there need to be more training, more cooperation, more work with partners on the other side of the border? Because they will say that unilateralness, if that's a thing or a right way to say it, the unilateral set of policies of like, we're going to do this and y'all do whatever, has there certainly been one of the issues. I would definitely put it to it. And the whole idea of every country just kind of doing its own thing and hoping it works out for the best, kind of regardless of what every other country is doing, with the whole, as we talked about previously, and of course had the interview re-aired, as is very relevant, on Monday during our fill-in show about the Darien Gap, as the visit was done by Bob Moore, founder and CEO of El Paso Matters. That's all of these stepping stones in that process of the overland travel is then subject to the individual policies of each country that it comes through, and not a whole lot of acting as a block or in coordination or anything like that. It seems to be that, okay, I'm not going to call it a uniquely Mexican policy, the Mexican government, but the idea of you're not our problem as long as you don't stop here, as that seems to be more or less the default for pretty much every country on the other side. And even before you get to the Darien Gap, Colombia has a little bit different, but given how much transit is still happening through the Darien Gap area, certainly an argument that this is that this is happening and that's the way it's working. And so that's one focus that was brought up during there, but whether or not that is going to be good enough is definitely another question. I will say that one other thing on, more locally based response to this, that El Paso County, as part of their meeting yesterday, and this is sourced from a Border Report, does plan to send a letter to Austin and Washington, D.C., specifically calling out Texas's policies when it comes to border security, migration, and those issues, voting unanimously, authorizing County Judge Ricardo Samaniego to send that letter to Governor Greg Abbott about, quote, cruelty, end quote, towards migrants crossing the border, and also being sent to the U.S. Department of Justice in support of that lawsuit that has been filed against the state of Texas. And I do believe Governor Greg Abbott was mentioned in there specifically as well about, those things, including mostly the barriers that get variants in, the actual Rio Grande parts of the border. I mean, yes, we have water flow here, but they got enough to anchor things in the river and have them float, which is more unusual in our sector. I'll think that one part is pretty apparent. So in support of that, among other things. So some issues or responses going on to many different aspects of the policies and in place on different portions of the border here today, including, of course, a local contribution to that, as well as I'm aware of other letters being sent about the impact and particularly on the perception of border communities overall, that getting some statewide and even national attention as well. So there's a lot going on there, including Eric von Holstein-Rathlow saying they're finding mass graves south of Rio Grande of poor souls who the cartels had no use for. Because again, in all of this, there's a lot of arguments about what isn't good policy, what is the right or wrong way to do this. I'm not hearing anyone particularly saying, who are the real, blameless in this, the cartels, because hell no. They are not doing this out of the goodness of their heart. They're thinking about what is needed, or like, even I could almost accept it, or at the very least be like, okay, I kind of get where you're coming from. If it was like this is we're trying to undo a wrong or anything like that. No, it's just about the money. It's about how much they can bilk out, which is very apparent when you start looking into, again, the rabbiting situations. Again, the ditching that happens after they present with law enforcement. And someone correct me if I'm wrong out there, but I feel like I've been noticing more state troopers in our region than was previous, or at least I've been encountering them more, not in the negative sense, or we're not getting pulled over, getting any tickets for anything, but I feel like I've been seeing more around than I maybe necessarily had. Then it might be the bluebird effect, the thing where you give something a name or list a phenomenon that you hadn't been noticing before, and then like with bluebirds, you start seeing them everywhere. Not that we get a whole lot of them in our region, but you get the idea. I think that was named back east more than anything. Let's call it the grackle phenomenon around here, though. If that was the case, I see them constantly. In any case, point is that the enforcement and issues along with this are certainly swirling around and continuing in our community, and we'll keep abreast of them, among other things, including, I do want to say right before we ended up going on air, 356 was, I think, kind of being referenced by one of our listeners here. The message from the office of Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, specifically, mostly, I think it's just screenshots of her tweets recently about essentially accusing the Operation Lone Star, of course, under Governor Greg Abbott, of doing separation of, not family separation, but of children from fathers at the border there. And I know there's at least one other comment that has come up on this, including Eric von Holstein-Rathler referencing Chip Roy, and also recent visits to the border here. Of course, there are comments often going on. And Ian Graham also saying on the weather that if anyone's driving over Trans Mountain, you need to be very careful. It's a really ugly storm up there. Makes me wonder if TxDOT will be doing a shutdown of Trans Mountain, as often happens. I mean, if there's ever bad weather, that's one of the first indications in our region, I do feel like. So let's go ahead and take that first break of this hour right now. Coming out of this break, getting into our interview of the day, of course, with all these other issues going along, and making sure that the development of our area, and specifically of the, let's call it the infrastructure and, frankly, utility of the 21st century, broadband internet, and the issues that come along with it, and how they're working on being addressed here by a variety of agencies, institutions, and organizations, including the El Paso Community Foundation, that are interviewed for today. So let's get into that. But of course, in the meantime, you're tuned in to Talk El Paso, airing live here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A whole lot more conversation, discussion, the things going on and affecting us here in the borderland after this break. Stay tuned. We're Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
No accidents to report right now. Freeway is looking pretty good. And let's check downtown here, which is probably the busiest part of town right now. Paisano southbound is very busy. Heavy traffic from South Stanton all the way to Piedras. We have Mesa Street southbound from Reynolds to Clark Drive. We're doing well today on this Wednesday morning. I'm Larry Aarons, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
In this week's Marketers Report, we hear about the importance of local radio from Allison Griffin, Head of Marketing at State Farm.
iHeart has such a broad broadcast reach that is local, and for us to be able to touch customers with a local feel but at a national scale is so efficient and important for us.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives marketers access to the audiences, trusted influencers, and data you need to grow. If you're a marketer, go to iHeartResults.com.
Hi, I'm Scotty Clark from Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. The heat is back, so get ready, El Paso. It's going to be a long, hot summer. At Scott Heating and Cooling, we're ready to help you maintain and service your home and business HVAC system. We service all major brands of heating and cooling equipment, as well as commercial kitchen equipment and walk-in freezers. With appointments available 7 days a week, make an appointment online or call Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing today at 915-595-4529.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
There are more identity threats than you realize. Even if you monitor your credit, only a little personal info needs to leak out, like your social security number or password,
or you to become a victim.
LifeLock alerts you to threats you could miss. If your identity is stolen, a dedicated US-based restoration specialist will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions, but everyone can save up to 25% off their first year with promo code NEWS. Go to lifelock.com.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed. News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Again, all those important ways that you can get at us, hear the show. I mean, that's a baseline. Staying informed is certainly important. If you want to interact with us, that's why we like some of those other ways. We have a lot of people dropping those likes, interacting, putting Amber Vonda, Ion Graham, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Ida Beza Gardner. And a lot of conversations going on over on our social media. And that's all possible because of the internet. Ever so important interconnection thing that used to be, I was looking back at some old reports the other day of the phenomenon known as internet, and like some of those like old Brian Cole reports to really date that one there. And of course, it used to be a curiosity and then became increasingly important. And now I would fully argue that as much as, our primary audience is certainly still on air, and we appreciate that. In fact, we got some very good ratings numbers that I'll need to see how I can share, but I'm sure there are ways that we can. Let's just say, to my understanding, only AM station in the top 10 of El Paso. So, hey, happy to be here. But in the meantime, getting connected to it has definitely moved from a curiosity to a nice to have to basically a need to have. And that's the focus of some upcoming meetings, and specifically an effort that's going to be ongoing for years now to try and deal with those issues here in our region. Right before we get into that, by the way, just as that note, looking with the text.El Paso, nothing about any closures just yet, but they do, of course, have the note about there's going to be the I-10 widening west. They're going to be having a 48-hour complete closure of I-10 west. All traffic from Red Road to Vinton from Sunday 8-6, so this coming Sunday 6 a.m. to Tuesday the 8th at 6 a.m. as well. So prepare for that if you're anywhere near that area, which is not too far from my neck of the woods, so that'll be fun. But in the meantime, again, talking about connection, for the people who maybe are able to tune into the show that way, do so because of internet. But what if you don't have it, and what does that mean, and what could it mean for our region to try to address with that? That's the major topic of conversation I was able to have with, again, Eric Pearson, president and CEO of the El Paso Community Foundation earlier today. And here is that interview. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Eric Pearson, president and CEO of the El Paso Community Foundation. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
No, thank you for having me.
Absolutely happy to have you on to talk about some of the important things going on in and around our community. So, as I often say at pretty much every intro segment to our program, or most of our programs here, people can find us in a variety of ways. And of course, some of the traditional ones like broadcast radio, we're not going away from that for any minute, but some of our increasing audience has been based on, digital means, whether it be smart devices, the, computers, or kind of anything in between. There's a whole lot of in between these days, but all of that, all those other parts are predicated on access, digital connections, internet. And that's been something that has been, I don't want to say necessarily take it for granted. I think a lot of people recognize that that is pretty much the backbone of the economy at this point. But accessibility, that can be a harder one to see, because often people are worried about, okay, how's the router doing in my house? And am I able to get good enough signal? Or increasingly, okay, is am I close enough to a cell tower to get it on my, smart device, smartphone, what have you? And so therefore, the larger concerns, the larger implications that also come with it can kind of like get lost in the milieu of the individual circumstances. And that's something that you all are focusing on, is specifically broadband internet access for the region as a whole.
Yeah, that's exactly correct. So one of the things that we did during the pandemic and during the lockdown, I say the pandemic's not necessarily over, but during lockdown,
sure.
We worked with the County of El Paso, the Hunt Institute at UTEP, the Loya Center at UTEP, and then the Dallas Fed to really study what kind of broadband internet access we had. And looking at broadband, and I'm going to get a little technical for a second, but it's, our minimum for broadband, or the definition of broadband at that time, which is now 3.5 years ago, was 50 megabits per second downstream, meaning when you download something, that's what your speed is, and about 10 upstream. And so that doesn't, at this point, according to the federal government, really become broadband. Now we're talking about 100 over 100.
Really?
So when I'm saying numbers like that, these ratios, it's downstream versus upstream. So whatever you can download and however you can upload. And so 100 over 100 is what we're striving for. And that's what the Broadband Development Office was created for. Texas was one of only a handful of states, imagine that, that didn't have a broadband policy. So in the prior legislative session in 21, we developed this broadband policy. The federal government, the Federal Communications Commission, which oversees radio and television,
certainly does,
is in charge of helping provide broadband access. So there are a couple of ways to do it, but I'll get there in a second.
Sure.
I'm going to back up to that study we did, which was the 50 over 10. And what we found was that about 44% of El Pasoans did not have either access to internet at all or had less than broadband access in our region. We did the same thing with the Dallas Fed in Las Cruces, and same results. Now the FCC
really
says on a census tract level, if one person has broadband, then that census tract has broadband. And so their maps were saying that 96% of El Pasoans and Las Cruces had access to broadband. And that's just not true. So we have had to challenge those FCC maps to get to the point where we are. And we're about to apply for a grant through the Broadband Development Office, which was created from the legislature, to try to help people have access to those megabits.
Yeah, because it's the speed of it that is certainly increasingly important. I mean, there's not any less data that is being required for pick an application, pick a program, pick a streaming source. They're not getting any less burdensome in the data load that comes through them. And so, but that talking about it that way maybe lead people to think like, well, okay, so it's a luxury. And for the longest time, internet was considered as such as a nice to have, not a need to have. But also that has been that has changed significantly. I mean,
huge. Yeah.
I mean, at this point, pretty much most, if not all, high schoolers within the region, at least for the major school districts, have laptops as part of their issued load of what they are given to be able to do their schoolwork. And it takes connection to continue doing that is just one specific example.
That's one example. Another example for those folks who might live in poverty, the way out of poverty is to apply for college these days. You're generally required to have a video upload.
Really? Okay.
So your video portfolio for college is an important part of it. Let's just think about entering society as a whole.
Yeah.
How do you bank?
I do it online or through my smartphone mostly.
There's an app for that, right? So banking. So being a part of the banking system. Education, we've talked about. How do you get a job? Have you heard about all this Indeed, whatever it is? And people are uploading and downloading huge amounts of data to try to get jobs and get out of the cycle of poverty. Okay, let's just back that up and think about health. Let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about telehealth. So in order to be a member of this society and to be able to contribute and receive benefits from this society, broadband is important. Broadband is crucial. And so we have a lot of people talking about this as the fourth utility.
Right.
I really think it's the second utility. And that's only because it requires electricity.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's a certain amount of, I mean, I know it's been talked about online in a lot of ways, the generational gap between go get a job, go out and pound that pavement, hand out those resumes, and then people who have, low retirement age saying there is nothing that does not require an online application these days. That I can think of the times myself personally, even before, the last few years in the last decades, where I have not had to do something online for a job, where actually having a physical resume meant anything. Like, it'll be nice to have later on in the process, but the initial process began with completely an online circumstance.
I have teenage kids who are going through the same thing. And whether it's a local business or a large corporation, it's exactly the same process. Oh, go to this website, click the QR code, let's go.
That's how it works there. So yeah, basically moving from, and that has been, I think, the kind of sticking point, or at least the needing to shift societal conception of it from a nice to have, a service, telecommunications, whereas, previously, like, sure, you wouldn't have had a house without a phone line, but it wasn't considered critical to live. You could figure it out. And now, if you don't have this, again, high-speed internet is essentially what we're talking about here, broadband being the specific term you're referring to there, you are being left behind in a variety of ways.
Yeah. And so in the 1920s, we had the golden age of wireless. We're back there again. It's just a different kind of wireless. And we're trying to provide people access to information. News and information is a big part of society, and how we elect our local officials, how we elect our, government officials. So a big part of democracy is news and information that you are providing. How do we let that go because we're not giving people access? So this is such an important part of who we are and what we do as a society and as a world, that leaving people out is leaving people behind.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Eric Pearson, President and CEO of the El Paso Community Foundation. Want to find out anything we're talking about? Of course, their main site, epcf.org, for the El Paso Community Foundation. But they've got on that main page there, you got to scroll down for a minute to get to that slider bar on the see all items. But they have the information on the Texas Broadband Development Office seeks feedback from communities and development of digital opportunity plan. And there is very specifically an upcoming event that's going to be happening on this. You want to find out any of those details? We'll have that link posted up along with this interview, but you can find it over again on the website. But that's going to be happening Monday, August 7th in the El Paso Community Foundation room at 333 North Oregon. They do have an Eventbrite registration link, but people are encouraged to come starting at, again, 5 p.m. Monday, August 7th there in downtown El Paso. So what's going to be happening at this meeting, and what's kind of the processes that are underway surrounding this?
So this is a listening tour from the Broadband Development Office. They came through a couple of years ago and had to revise the way they were doing things. And so this is kind of a reboot of that. There are several opportunities for people to have their voices heard. This is a big one of them. And the Broadband Development Office comes from the state of Texas, but they're managing a lot of those FCC dollars and in several ways. So there's something called the BOOT program. BOOT stands for Bringing Online Opportunities to Texas. So that's a big part of it. And that's an infrastructure grant that we intend to apply for through borderplexconnect.org, which is Borderplex Connect is what we think will be a regional utility authority, hopefully in the future. That's me knocking on wood.
Interesting. Okay.
And there's one right now that the foundation and Borderplex Connect are doing to try to enroll people in a subsidy program for affordable internet. And that's through the Affordable Connectivity Program, or ACP. So those are two programs right now that are going on. One is a subsidy for people to be able to afford those $75 to $100 bills for actual broadband. The other one is really looking for shovel-ready projects to help provide folks, because there are about 4 million people in Texas without access to broadband internet, and they're both urban and rural. In fact, the large portion of them, about 3 million of them, are urban folks. So the issue there is not necessarily infrastructure in the same way it is in the rural areas. So it's really that last mile. We have fiber optic freeways running through this region. So how do we get to the exit? How do we get into the neighborhoods with that broadband access? And it's not something that's market driven, because in poorer neighborhoods where people can't necessarily afford it, the general ISPs or internet service providers are not going to be able to do that. It's not something that's marketable for them. So this makes it it's a little carrot to help expand that out. And in rural areas, they're really talking about providing all infrastructure. So there's an affordability aspect in urban areas, but it's all infrastructure in rural areas. And then on the in-betweens, there's a little bit of infrastructure to be had everywhere. So it's a big, big issue. It took me, and I think I'm easily programmable, it took me about 6 months to even get my head around how to start to address this problem. but it's something we have to address. And it's some of the most important work the El Paso Community Foundation will probably do in the next decade.
And I mean, the impact from this, I mean, again, just some of the things on the study, and I'll give, again, people go to borderplexconnect.org. That's BORDRPLEXCONNECT.org, talking about the whole region, that approximately 1 in 4 households in our area do not have internet access, just period.
At all.
And that's, I mean, you think about that, and I mean, sure, you think about other basic utilities. I mean, the colonias have been a conversation we've had in our area as well, places that don't have, water service or things like that directly available. And that has been being addressed in its own way. We've talked with other organizations dealing with that, but that would be thought of as very backwards, I would think, in this modern day. Like, that still isn't available there. How has that happened? And I mean, so that's like basic life function kind of stuff here. But like you said, not being left behind and being able to connect and deal with society, basically. So that and those kind of things is incredibly important. And when it comes down to then, frankly, the impact you expect it to have in our community. So again, preliminary meetings going on right now, listening, trying to get feedback from people, but in addressing this, in dealing with, it's one thing to say, okay, we need to connect people, but then what do you expect would be the impact to happen to our region if these things were to start being able to be addressed and start getting more people connected?
Well, we have, so I'm going to back up because
sure.
you put out that thing that we see on Borderplex Connect. It's a point of trivia. 1 in 4 people don't have access at all. And so that really corresponds to our poverty rate in our region. So 22% poverty rate. So you do the math. It's not too hard to do. It's 1 in 4, 1 in 5 people are below the poverty line. And those are people with flip phones who may have limited internet access, but aren't even aware of it. So there are 3 prongs to what we need to do. One is to get our voices heard. The second one is to empower ourselves to access a ton of federal money that will be coming down. Texas has been awarded $3.3 billion. New Mexico will have about $600 million based on population to help address this issue. And we want to be at the front of the line with shovel-ready projects to try to make sure that this is going to affect our region positively. So that's one thing. And so what the BDO, the Broadband Development Office's visit, is really designed to do is hear from the community, hear about areas that are underserved, and hear about what the issues are in those underserved areas. So, in addition to our public meeting downtown at the Foundation Room on Monday, we will have a tour of San Elizario and Clinton, Fabens, and the school districts out there, Canutillo as well, to try to let people understand what the folks from the BDO understand what the rural issues are in these smaller communities that don't necessarily have the infrastructure. So they're looking at it in a really holistic way, and we're trying to give them the best tour we can. But the most important part is that you show up. If you have even a modicum of internet, go to that website and sign up.
Yeah, sure. Again, it's kind of then a chicken and an egg problem. Like, if they don't have internet, how they can visit it. But again, the details on that, if you can go, because I mean, there is access, and a lot of people think, well, just go to the library, but that's not there's limited terminals at a library that can't necessarily fit everyone, and that quarter of the population we're talking about, or quarter of the households. So again, there's epcf.org or borderplexconnect.org. But again, the event details for that coming up, going to be happening Monday, August 7th at the El Paso Community Foundation room. That's 333 North Oregon Street. If you ever walked down that way and across from, when it was at the west side of San Jacinto Plaza, it's that ground level room right there. So be able to see it happening, among other things, and then go and visit that. Happening again, 5 p.m. Monday, August 7th. I'll forgive everyone for not being during our show if you're going to that one there personally. So, but again, like, it's a one thing to say, like, this is a problem, this is an issue, but what do you really expect to be the outcome or the change or the impact on this region if this were to be within whatever time frame is necessary to do this? It's certainly not going to happen overnight. I fully expect that. But if this were to be addressed, what kind of impact would you expect to happen for this region, for this community?
What we'd see is more people enrolled in the ACP. First of all, that's the low-hanging fruit. The second part is that we're able to build out and help the current internet service providers provide for the last mile, those folks that are underserved. Maybe we're helping build a broadband line that people can access. The point is, we're trying to figure out a way to provide this in a changing and in a constantly changing environment. And so, if I'm looking 5 years down the road, we have very much like you mentioned in Colonias, providing water to people. We have created a utility authority that's helping provide through various forms, whether it's satellite, whether it's broadband on fiber optic cable, whether it's a mesh network. I can go further.
Sure.
It's providing people with the minimum access to broadband internet. And then on the other side of that, helping them with devices. And what I consider the most important part for especially an elderly population that may not be what I call digital natives, helping them understand what that literacy level is with digital world. So it's how do you access your banking system? How do you avoid scams? How do you access your doctors? And then, on the other side of that education, how do we get the mom and pop doctors' offices to provide more telehealth? So we're addressing a lot of really molecular problems at a meta level.
I mean, again, the way that this touches everything, like you mentioned, those topics we mentioned, education, healthcare, services, government, among other things. And there's not really an aspect of life that I can't think of that has not been affected by information availability and online services in some way in this modern day and age. So if we're talking about addressing this, and I mean, you'd mentioned the poverty rate in comparison to this, would you expect that could be something that could be addressed through making it more accessible, more available, more a part of people's lives and their ability to take advantage of these things?
Certainly, you're breaking the cycle of poverty when you're bringing people into community and allowing them to access what they should have to access to get out of that cycle. And so that's access to job interviews, that's access to Zoom, so you can do a job interview out of town or in town. I don't care. We want to bring people out of poverty, and I know it's something we can never solve, but it's something we can address. And by every day adding value to our community through the ways that we have at our fingertips, we should be doing it. And that's our moral imperative.
Again, if you've just been joining us, guest right now has been Eric Pearson, President and CEO of the El Paso Community Foundation. Again, a couple of key websites, if you're able to access them here. Again, there's borderplexconnect.org and, of course, epcf.org. You can find out the main information for the El Paso Community Foundation. But if you just want to go see the event, learn the information, give your feedback, that, again, coming up with the visit from the Texas Broadband Development Office happening Monday, August 7th at 5 p.m. in the El Paso Community Foundation room. Again, 333 North Oregon Street. So, again, 5 p.m. Monday. Find all the details there online or on those sites, or register for the event there as well. So, Eric, thank you very much for taking the time to come speak with us about these details, about the importance of the issue overall and the impact it could have on our community if properly addressed here today.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity.
So, again, thanks to Eric on that. We're going to go ahead and take that next break right now. Some conversation going on in the comments, among other things, but we'll also go ahead and open up those phone lines as we usually would at this point during the program, see if we can squeeze any on before the end of the this is for the top of the next hour. But if you want to get on that line, add your 2 cents that way, and of course taking those comments through the social media and through the online access. So if you got it, use it. 915 is the number to call. 915-544-5876. 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Fidel Moreno Mesa with your CBS 4 News Update. The man accused of shooting and killing an El Paso County Sheriff's deputy took the witness stand on Tuesday on the 5th day of the ongoing capital murder trial. The defense team for Facundo Chavez placed him on the witness stand as their first witness. The defense argued that Chavez did not act randomly, but rather that he acted based on information given to him from his then girlfriend, Arlene Pina. At 9:35 in the morning, Chavez took the stand as his attorney, Luis Lopez, asked him to tell the jury about he and Pina's relationship. Chavez testified to having met Pina in December of 2016 through a friend of a friend and began dating her in December of 2017. Chavez said that he and Pina were together up until March of 2019. Chavez testified that he was on probation when he shot Deputy Herrera and that he had worked out a plea deal to serve 2 years in prison for previous crimes when he was scheduled to turn himself in. The trial continues today. We'll, of course, bring you more updates as we get them.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
No accidents to report right now. Freeway is looking pretty good. And let's check downtown here, which is probably the busiest part of town right now. Paisano southbound is very busy. Heavy traffic from South Stanton all the way to Piedras. We have Mesa Street southbound from Reynolds to Clark Drive. We're doing well today on this Wednesday morning. I'm Larry Aarons, El Paso Traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Hotter temperatures are going to be returning. Weather warned beginning Friday for heat. Heat advisory going into effect Friday morning. We have an excessive heat watch that's going to be going into effect for your Saturday. 103 for your Thursday, 10% chance of a storm. We'll see a 10% chance of a storm, high of 106 for your Friday, and 108 for your Saturday with partly cloudy skies. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
My friend and I are taking a trip to Mexico this year, but neither of us speak Spanish. So we downloaded Babbel and started learning Spanish fast.
Want to start getting conversational in another language in as little as 3 weeks? Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons were designed by language experts to be the most efficient and effective way to learn a new language.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿De dónde eres?
¿De dónde eres?
Babbel's interactive lessons are created by real language teachers and voiced by real native speakers using a modern conversation-based method. So in no time, you can start speaking confidently about real-life topics in another language.
Nosotras vamos a México en 2 días y ahora hablamos español. Gracias, Babbel. Sí, muchas gracias.
Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. Just go to Babbel.com and start learning a new language today. That's Babbel.com. Babbel.com.
Protection for all, peace of mind for you. For over 40 years, Mazer Security Alarms has proudly served El Paso with superior service and superior protection. You can afford the best. For your free quote or to upgrade your existing system, call Mazer Security Alarms at 915-590-0033.
Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's. This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM. Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
No accidents to report right now. Freeway's looking pretty good. And let's check downtown here, which is probably the busiest part of town right now. Paisano southbound is very busy. Heavy traffic from South Stanton all the way to Piedras. We have Mesa Street southbound from Reynolds to Clark Drive. We're doing well today on this Wednesday morning. I'm Larry Aarons, El Paso Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
I'm back to doing what I love and more, thanks to the Good Feet store.
Let's talk about good feet. Do you have good feet, or do you have tired, sore, or painful feet? Or maybe you even have pain in your hip, knees, or back, and you suspect it's coming from your feet. Hi, this is Mike with the Good Feet store. With over 200 stores across the country, the Good Feet store has accumulated thousands of 5-star reviews from people who struggle with problems just like these. You might ask, how do you get all those great positive reviews? Well, it may sound a little old-fashioned, but 5-star reviews come from our commitment to providing 5-star service. That's why we offer a lifetime warranty on all arch supports and a free fitting and test walk. You can try before you buy. So you've got nothing to lose. Stop in today and see what the Good Feet store can do for you.
Thanks to the Good Feet store.
Sandal season is here, and Good Feet fits into all your summer shoes, even flip-flops.
Are you a business owner, CEO, or responsible for marketing? If you are, iHeartMedia can help you reach your goals and find new customers. We reach more consumers in your target area than anyone else, and we can give you access to those potential customers more cost-effectively across radio, digital, podcasting, and social. We'd love to show you how iHeartMedia can work for you. Get started today at iHeartAdvertising.com. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
The fresh scent of Irish Spring and those sensational Irish Spring suds are just the reset you need to own the day. Irish Spring. When the spring hits you, you're ready. Pick up Irish Spring at your local retailer today.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, a lot of comments, conversation about this and other issues, including discussion of the draft that I wasn't totally anticipating, but hey, that's what sometimes goes on in the comments there. And of course, we have those phone lines open now, even if we're probably going to be taking those calls closer to the start of the next hour, just because we're short timing at this segment. And of course, that phone number open and available now, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And a lot of stuff we're talking about here today, including specifically part of that authorization that I was talking about when it comes to El Paso County and the conversation going on, of course, with Greg Abbott. That's one thing, but also a part of it, didn't fully realize this, but I've heard previously of the Texas Border Coalition issuing a letter to both President Biden and Governor Greg Abbott urging collaboration on border solutions. And the chair of that, actually, and also, of course, El Paso County Commissioner in his own right, David Stout, saying, quote, "We believe that cooperation between federal and state authorities is essential in achieving smart and effective border management." I think essentially the ask here is that Governor Abbott stop doing the floating barrier things and government drop your lawsuit on it. I guess it could be a step, though I see that fully moving forward to, well, among other things, potentially the Supreme Court. In any case, we're going to take that next break right now. And of course, coming out of this break, get into those phone calls, more of the comments, because we've been posting some up as they've been more relevant than not. But hey, conversation continues on over there because of the internet access. Yay. Anyway, get into that and a whole lot more. Again, that phone number, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Of course, Talk El Paso brought to you in part by Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Their end of summerbration coming up. Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. See y'all in a minute. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
We're still seeing long delays today on the I-10 eastbound from Vinton down to Sunland Park, on and off slowing, 25-minute delays. Westbound on the 10 from Trans Mountain up to Vinton in the Upper Valley. Roadways reduced to one lane for road construction, so there's delays there. Law enforcement off on the right shoulder, Memorial Highway southbound at Bob Hope, and slow traffic eastbound Montana, McRae to Desert Meadows, 15-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
The most current and comprehensive. Just minutes away at the top and bottom of the hour. And always online at KTSMradio.com.
Texting privacy policy, terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message data rates may apply. Reply stop, opt out.
Binges, blackouts, regret, shame, trying and failing to drink less or quit. Hi, I'm Jonathan, founder of Or Health. I know how scary drinking too much can be because I struggled with alcohol misuse for most of my adult life. But I also know that it is possible to drink less or quit. And medication can help. Naltrexone is a safe, effective medication that makes it easier to cut back or quit drinking, so you don't have to rely on willpower alone. I started Or Health to make access to naltrexone convenient and private, to help people like me regain control over alcohol.
If you're ready to stop drinking or just drink less, text ADULT to 323232 to get a secure link to Or Health's private online assessment. Our licensed medical professionals will evaluate your assessment, and if medication is right for you, prescribe it online. We'll deliver your prescription right to your door. No doctor's office visits required. Text the word ADULT to 323232 to get started today. That's ADULT to 323232.
Most of the time, traffic is pretty good.
But there are times when traffic can be pretty bad. No, I mean like really bad. Almost, but more like an asteroid's gonna hit the city and everyone's trying to get out of town at once and nobody's car is moving and people are running down the highway clutching their kids and whatever belongings they can grab. Yep, now you got it. It's times like these you need your severe traffic station. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio. News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Former President Trump is expected to appear in a Washington, D.C. federal court tomorrow. Lisa Taylor has more.
In announcing the indictment yesterday, Special Counsel Jack Smith said his office will push for a speedy trial and that they're ready to have all the evidence tested in a court of law. The indictment, which is 45 pages long, references 6 unnamed co-conspirators. There may be some heavy traffic in D.C. due to Trump's appearance. The Secret Service released a statement saying it's working with city police and federal officers to ensure the highest levels of safety and security for Trump while minimizing disruptions to the normal court process.
Sweltering heat continues to keep millions of Americans under heat alerts. The heat index is hitting triple digits all across the South. Washington, D.C. Metro Police report no shooter was found at the Senate office building this afternoon. U.S. Capitol Police began evacuating the building after officials said they received what they called a concerning 911 call. D.C. Metro Police said it appears to have been a bad call and there were no injuries. FBI Director Christopher Wray is announcing the rescue of more than 200 victims of sex trafficking in a nationwide campaign dubbed Operation Cross Country. The feds activated nearly every field office, plus state and local partners, to identify or arrest more than 6 suspected human traffickers. The downgrading of U.S. credit rating by Fitch is a warning shot across the U.S. government's bow. University of Central Florida economist Sean Snaith says that we've got to right our fiscal ship before we get swamped.
In terms of budget management, we've been adrift here, for really decades now, and the national debt keeps climbing.
The Mega Millions jackpot continues to grow after there was no winner in last night's drawing. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Idaho doctors can continue providing out-of-state referrals for abortion. A federal judge ruled in favor of Planned Parenthood Great Northwest and has temporarily blocked the act of suspending medical licenses. The nonprofit organization says the ruling will protect healthcare providers and they'll be able to assist patients without fear of being prosecuted by the Attorney General. Another rocket entered space from a NASA facility in Virginia and will conduct research before returning to Earth's surface. Rebecca Hughes reports.
3, 2, 1.
A Northrop Grumman Antares rocket blasted off from NASA's Wallops Flight Facility Tuesday night. The rocket carried a Cygnus spacecraft with a payload of supplies for the International Space Station. Along with scientific investigations, the mission will examine fire protection aboard spacecraft and the density of Earth's uppermost atmosphere.
New York City is facing a cat crisis as cash-strapped owners surrender their pets. Sarah Lee Kessler has more.
Pet surrenders are surging, with many owners finding it tough to feed themselves, let alone a pet. So the city's 3 animal care centers are shutting down cat intakes. They say they have no choice. 7,500 pets have been turned in since January, and just 3,000 have been adopted. They're offering $5 to anyone who'll take a cat that's over the age of 5. Not much of an incentive, but hey, they're short on cash too.
Cedar Point will soon be home to the world's tallest and fastest triple-launch Strata roller coaster. Top Thrill Dragster has been closed since 2021 when a female guest suffered serious injuries when a piece of metal fell from the coaster and hit her in the head. A multi-million-dollar lawsuit was recently filed in the matter. Now the park says it's reimagining the coaster and calling it Top Thrill 2. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Our iHeartRadio Music Festival is coming back to Las Vegas.
September 22nd and 23rd at T-Mobile Arena.
Streaming live only on Hulu.
And starting Monday, you could win your way there.
Plus $1,000 spending cash.
Introducing Audible's new original series, Breakthrough, the first of its kind audio-only singing competition featuring celebrity judges Kelly Rowland and Sarah Bareilles, with host Daveed Diggs. Hear who has what it takes. Listen on Audible or wherever you get your podcasts.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
Protection for all, peace of mind for you. For over 40 years, Mazer Security Alarms has proudly served El Paso with superior service and protection. Locally owned and operated, Mazer Security Alarms created Super Switch technology to prevent false alarms and keep your business and family safe. You can afford the best. For your free quote or to upgrade your existing system, call Mazer Security Alarms at 915-590-0033. That's 915-590-0033. Mazer Security Alarms.
Only iHeartRadio gives you access to all of your favorite radio stations.
The Rod Ryan Show.
It's the Woody Show.
It's Elliot in the morning.
All of the once-in-a-lifetime events.
iHeartRadio Music Festival, yeah!
All of the best free curated playlists.
The best bands.
All of the great podcasts for every interest.
The stuff they don't want you to know.
All of the mind-blowing contests.
$20,000.
Awesome. All of your favorite superstars.
This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters.
Best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
Stay tuned and stay informed with News Radio 690 KTSM, an iHeart radio station, El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Ruli's International Kitchen, now beginning for the month of August there, Rick at Night, as in Ruli's International Kitchen, R-I-K, Rick at Night, with their reverse happy hours from 9 to 11, and some of the best pizza in town with, of course, their wood-fired pizza oven. Find them online at Ruli's International Kitchen, or rulisik.com. Give them a call to make your reservation for the everyday occasion or those special celebrations. 915-313-4806, 915-313-4806. Find them, of course, right off of I-10 and Executive Center, 4176 North Mesa. Just a great little gourmet dive. Ruli's International Kitchen.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days. Yeah, you can get there through internet access, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM is, of course, the number to call. Full up. Okay, just filled up at the moment, so keep that number handy. But again, 915-544-5876 is the number to call if you want to get on that way. Still got a landline out there. I don't know. I honestly haven't had one for several years now. It gets awkward when then your cell signal ends up being in the toilet like mine is recently. But there's ways to get around that, among other things. So there's a lot of conversations going on online, some of them including about the idea of government subsidies, and particularly that of, benefits for the underprivileged, or other ways of being put it here, including, put it this way, the idea of dependence, either multi-generational ones, or the idea of some services, or like HUD housing, things like that being at issue. Another comment coming in from David Ferguson saying, being indigent isn't the fun fest that some conservatives like to pretend it is. The fact is that many people simply don't have access to healthy food, consistent housing, or help, despite the claims. And I'll say that for anyone who thinks that it's fun to be on any kind of government services, go ahead and try for it. I know people, I get the idea of the welfare queen, much talked about, particularly back in the 80s, but still persists to this day. The idea of someone just, living high on the hog off of your tax dollars. I mean, it's frankly infuriating. The idea that could even be possible is, but much of the reality is, let's just say, ever since that idea came out, I want to say it was specifically Reagan put forth that idea, or elaborated it as such. let's just say there's been a lot of legislation that's happened between now and then. And sure, there's always things that fall through the cracks, and there's always fraud. And fraud is still incredibly illegal, and people who do that kind of thing end up, I mean, as soon as it's detected, it's going away for a long time. So, I mean, it's kind of like, what's the right way to put it? If you want to learn the value of money, go and try to borrow some, and same kind of thing whenever it comes from specific programs here. So let's go ahead and get to those phone lines now. I mean, related to what we were talking about, I guess, particularly with the idea of government programs, though, I'm still going to say I'm going to be in favor of improving broadband access in our area, because I mean, what are some of the things that, say, companies looking to come into an area, looking to invest in a place, what are they looking for? They're looking for, among other things, the basic infrastructure that makes it sense to make sense for their business to be there, or their industry. I mean, we think a lot about, I mean, I've talked about a lot in the past about like the logistics mecca that is the whole Santa Teresa area, as they've got both overland, air, rail, the international ports of entry that they have really been built out over there. But I will say that broadband is becoming increasingly important, particularly as then like back office. We've had companies based in El Paso now looking at basically eliminating those offices, Fortune 500 ones that are no longer finding that necessary. So what makes up that different? The internet access. But anyway, let's get to those phone lines now. Again, that number 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. We do have Marco in Central on the line with us here right now. Marco, thanks for joining us.
How's it going, Andrew?
Doing all right there. What's on your mind?
So, you know what? I want to apologize to Frankie for calling him a metiche. And I'll tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
The next 3 days, I'm going to give you an idea of the 3 pillars in my mayoral platform.
Okay.
And we're going to make it simple. And so, but they're big because they're going to change the face of El Paso forever. And to say that, what I said to Frankie, I want to start today and say this to Frankie. Frankie, one of my ideas is going to involve Las Cruces, so we will need your input.
Okay.
For me to say, oh, just shut up, we don't need you, is foolish and nearsighted. Because the final point that I'll make on Friday is so big, and it's important. And so, Frankie, you said, come with ideas. I want you to know I respect my elders. And I thought long and hard about what you said. And me trying to become mayor isn't in a vacuum. It just didn't happen. I've been thinking of this for many years, ideas that we could bring to El Paso that are workable and feasible. So here's the first pillar of my mayoral process. So what we plan to do for El Paso, if I'm lucky enough to serve you as your mayor, okay? We want to build 10 solar power stations around El Paso that would provide free energy for vehicles, and it would be free for residents of Texas and El Paso. So we have found the technology that we could put around El Paso, and basically you'll have 10 free charging stations for electric vehicles around El Paso. Why are we doing this? Because this is important because of the process. Yesterday, I spoke to you about putting Target in the downtown area.
Sure.
Well, that was actually, it was meant as an argument point, but it was also meant for Mr. Foster as a serious point. At one point, I'm sure we'll have to have these discussions, but I feel that it would be better used to keep business coming downtown to a later time. We'll discuss that more tomorrow, but that's just part of the ideas of what we have for the downtown area.
Okay.
Each one of these points are separate. Today, for everyone to know, my intentions coming in, we're going to find 10 areas around El Paso, 10 solar power stations that will provide free energy for people who have electric vehicles. And if you're a resident of El Paso or a resident of Texas, this will be absolutely free. Each charge station can provide energy, enough charge energy for about 50 cars a day. So, and we might even be able to make it better. We'll have discussions with the electric company. I feel that if they're going to be saying stuff like carbon neutral, maybe they need to put up a little bit of the funding for this. The project will be big, but it'll be essential for El Paso. So, Frankie, I want you to know I'm not coming into this just wanting to hang out, put my feet on the desk, and say, "What's up? I'm your mayor." No, I'm coming in to work for you as a resident of Las Cruces, because I know it's vital that the region change. And so I'm bringing you serious proposals. This is the first one. And so with that, I'll let it go to you, Andrew.
Yeah, sure. Well, I appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you, brother. Have a beautiful day.
I mean, I appreciate, policy is not just the thing I say to stop someone from saying something I don't like. Like, if it doesn't come down to that, it's ending up being a, my dad can beat up your dad type of logic without looking at the implementation of it here of like, my dad can bench press 450. What can your dad do? Like, that starts leading to more credence to that type of argument now, doesn't it? And so when we start talking about policies and things to implement here, that's frankly how I judge how I make my political decisions, who I go for in the ballot box. Because if you're, again, I have a lot of issues with the whole, well, this person has the letter like beside their name. I don't think that served us well. And frankly, you can argue that, Republicans in Texas have argued against them themselves with the removal of the straight ticket voting on the ballot. But there's other considerations, and I'm sure political realities that go into that. Point is that it's an interesting point there to be brought up on the idea of having it be free charging stations. A lot of the time, whether we're talking about broadband access, as we were had with our interview, or when it comes to things such as that, it often comes about that's, okay, what does it take to see something change? What does it take to make a move in that kind of a space, right? It often takes both the capacity and the ability to do so. So it's one thing to, like if we had cars here but no roads in El Paso, a lot of people would be like saying, okay, what's the point? So it's kind of a chicken and an egg type thing. I know there's been a conversation around bike lanes and the way they're implemented, that it's not that, we don't need bike lanes because no one uses bikes. Is it that no one uses bikes because there are no bike lanes, and ways to make sure you're not going to get smushed on the side of the road because there's no protection for it. So, there's the interesting debates that could be had on this. So we don't demand solutions out of everyone that calls here. Otherwise, we would not be having much of a conversation, because a lot of people like to debate what the ideas are, and I appreciate people who put them forward, and that's kind of why we ask them for when we do our full interviews about what is going on with elected officials. These are some of the questions we ask about. Okay, how are you going to accomplish your goals? Because if you don't have that idea, then it ends up being so much, hot air balloon fuel, let's put it that way. Anyway, I think we got time for one more call before we hit that next break right now. Again, that number to call full up at the moment. Again, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM, and some others chiming in on there here, like James Radcliffe saying there are other means of providing energy than inefficient solar panels and bird-killing windmills. So some back and forth on this. Definitely on there, like an Eric von Holzgermathel saying nothing's free, and Huddle Rueda saying people who can afford electric vehicles most likely don't need free electric stations. But I'm just saying there's different ways. And Louis Pinot also saying on downtown, no parking, inconvenient shopping, no retail, ticket happy cops, etc. So chicken and an egg idea right there. Is it that, well, these things exist because no one lives downtown, or does no one live downtown, or at least a very small portion of the population of the building space of downtown at the moment because of issues like that? And if things were to change, it might become more viable, possible, etc. So it's kind of like where your starting point is. Anyway, get to at least one more call before we hit that next break. We do have Eric on the east side here with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Marco sounds like a socialist. He's already compromising his conservative values, it seems. He should be pressuring Trump to pay back that $600,000 he owes the city. Which he hasn't taken a stance on yet and is dodging. But the city paying for the gas used by city council representatives, I think that's extremely important. Like, that strengthens the relationship between the people and city representatives, because city representatives can meet with more of them and hear their thoughts. Like, there's a direct relationship between city gas card usage and how much work city reps are doing and how many meetings with their constituents they're taking. Like, if you wanted to increase voter turnout and strengthen our democratic institutions in El Paso, like you said, we should aspire, we should support paying city representatives gas in an accountable and transparent way. Going forward, we don't only want the rich running for city council, and we don't want that negative pressure on them in the future that discourages their engagement with, the representatives. And, like meditate on a scenario where a poor person representing the economic interests of the working class and poor is elected to be city representative. Like now we are to expect them to pay for the gas required to do their job optimally. Like that's going to be coming up, for a vote, and that's going to be determined on. And I think it's really important for people to, acknowledge that correlation between meeting with constituents and the gas card usage that we were seeing. I feel like Cassandra Hernandez was being unfairly maligned by conservatives in El Paso. They were assuming that those thousands of dollars that she had used for her gas card, to meet with constituents was, some form of theft or grand larceny, as, your community puts it. And, I wanted to point out on your commentary on that, last week, you were promoting conservative disinformation and false assumptions on that specific issue, like repeatedly referring to grand larceny and theft. And you cited a May 25th and June 2nd article from KFOX to defend your encouragement and promotion of defamatory statements about City Representative Hernandez.
So let's clear up a couple things here, since you're actually accusing me of not crimes, but potentially civil penalties. What I did was we referred to some of the coverage on here, and then I also, since their questions had come up about was there investigation, was there things, and what are the statutes, I read the statute. Don't have it in front of me here at the moment, but I could pull it up here before too long, about what is the things involving theft in Texas. What are the levels? And do believe that if it were to move forward, has not. Again, the El Paso Police Department has said that the city spokesperson on behalf of the El Paso Police Department saying that they stand behind their analysis that, in shorthand, not the exact quote, no crime was committed, though it was further said by the district attorney's office that no case has been presented to them, so they have not been able to. It's not they made a determination that nothing has been done to be able to move forward on. But I do frankly agree with the idea that I would be surprised if she were to be charged with a crime on this. People were asking about what are the statutes on it, and there is a increase. So I do believe technically something of that level, if it were to be determined to be theft, or at least pursued as such, would be technically moved up a level as it was being done by an elected official. But I would be surprised if any kind of prosecution ends up happening, because, and here's the part I agree with you on. I want you to remember the part that I'm agreeing with you on, and we'll see if that sticks, is that there really was no policy on this, that the use of this card, I mean, I'm not really hearing any contravention of it being said. I mean, sure, there may have been things, certain statements that have been pointed to being said by the chief internal officer's office about saying, hey, stop using it this way. But for the most part, no one can provide a written, laid out policy for the use of this card. And for that fact alone, whether you don't like, or in between, or like the concept of it, like you seem to, of the gas card and the existence of the program, I don't see anything being able to move, determined as culpable. Let's put it that way, because usually you'd have to say, well, this was what's some of the phrases that are used here? In clear violation of policy or something like that. And in this case, I mean, I think that several jugglers worth of balls were dropped in this whole situation. And yeah, if they're going to see a gas program before, if it is not well delineated, I'm going to be, and I'm sure a lot of others are going to be pretty unhappy about the existence of that, because that's, I think, where it really comes from. The idea of use it. And I mean, of course, Cassandra Hernandez and herself, including the statement we read from her, don't forget about that. She did say that this was, forget the exact number, between a quarter and a third of her entire family's gas usage. So apparently that family is just using a ton of gas, and that's their business and that's their fun. And she released those bits of information and those records in support of her stance on this. And you don't know if it'll end up going to an appeal. For the moment, it seems like it has stopped with the letter of reprimand. But if we're going to see anything else happen with it, I would want there to be just a hella defined program, to use a very mid-early 2000s phrase of myself here. So would that be something you would agree upon, about if we do see any kind of new program moving forward? I mean, it's been hinted at, I feel like, by the city, by, again, the interim city manager, that having a really well-defined program, if this was to be moved forward, would be about the only way to do so?
Oh, absolutely. There needs to be more transparency in how it's used, and keeping track of how what meetings and mileage
Sure.
and such. But you just repeated what you suggested the other day, that there could be some legal consequences in the future. When it's already settled, the police said that we found no crimes, and on a more current article from KFOX, you referenced older articles to support that view that the police may still pursue the crimes.
Not police.
When they said you cited May 25th and June 2nd. On a later date, on June 16th, from KFOX, they said Hicks said nothing is in his office regarding Hernandez's case because nothing has been presented by El Paso police. And then the El Paso Police Department said it stands by its original assessment that there was no evidence of a crime.
Like I just ended up saying right now, if you were listening.
No, the police gave more. They closed their investigation. They reconfirmed their initial thoughts on it, and that was the position.
Correct.
During the Ethics Commission hearing. It's settled. It's not unclear on whether the police are going to pursue it. It's very clear. And you were using that unclearness to promote the defamatory statements of your commenters.
Again, we don't promote anyone's comments here. I may agree or disagree with certain people, but we didn't go with commenting here. So if you're unclear on that concept, do you feel that I promote your comments? Let's put it that way, because I read those and have you call in here. So if you feel that this is promotion, we did have several other conversations. But no, this is not saying that, oh, no, she should be held accountable, and this is how. This is I quote me on this. Giving you the note here. This happening, 25 minutes, 40 seconds past the top of the 5 o'clock hour on August 2nd, this Wednesday. I do not believe there will be any further charges brought against Cassandra Hernandez, nor do I believe that there's an ability for there to be done so, or not even any charges brought beyond, the ethics complaint, which is not a charge, because without a well-defined policy to point to of being in violation of, where does the case begin? So, I mean, as much as Bill Hicks did not say that, and again, that was the district attorney's office, not the El Paso police. And spokesperson for the city of El Paso on behalf of the El Paso police said they stand by the El Paso police's position on this. I fully expect that, at the very least, from criminal, what has been being talked about, some have asked about, there will be no movement on that. I would be very surprised if there was movement on that. There's the potential for the city of El Paso to consider something, but that would be done by, other city reps themselves. The potential removal from office has been discussed. I would be surprised if that gets moved forward as well. Frankly, I think a lot of the city of El Paso just kind of want to move on beyond this because, there have been others that have been put forth as potentially also having done, again, misuse if there were to be guidelines on use of the cards here. So I think most people just want to, particularly on city council, my sense is, want to move smooth the hell on from this and maybe have actual policies in place. And I'll agree with you on one further point that I tend to judge, besides policy and the election process, I tend to judge elected officials, particularly on their performance in office. Results are great, but the accessibility, the elected officials who make themselves more available, more accessible, more able to hear from their constituents, regardless of their position. Because some say I have fundraising dinners, but yeah, fundraising dinners don't really count because those are people who are giving you money and therefore agree with you. Sure, someone could, do that $100 a plate just to go and yell at their elected official. I don't think that happens a lot. I'd be surprised if there are even numbers on that, but I'm just going to surmise that that's not a terrifically common occurrence. So someone who makes themselves available, able, and willing to hear from the community, not just, we've got office hours every third Tuesday of the month from 4 to 4:05 p.m. Oh, you didn't make it. Sorry. We all know. And the sense I get from elected officials that are more accessible or not, I just tend to be, mark in their favor, at the very least in my mind, on if they are more accessible. So I would agree, being out there and being in the community more often is arguably a good thing. Just making sure we're doing it in a way that doesn't lend itself to even the possibility of conversations about fraud. I would think that's the way we should end up doing that. So appreciate the points in the call for what it's worth. And again, remember to listen to what I'm saying. We super need to take that next break right now. And just as a bit of proof that you're willing to actually conversate with me, we'll have a conversation. In the meantime, let's go and take that next break right now. Going out of this break, we'll get to more of the calls, comments, and everything that we do. Stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. That number again to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned. Mazer Security Alarms, your El Paso homegrown solution for all of your security needs, be it at home, at the office, frankly, anywhere in between. Anything that you have something that's dear, near, precious, and worth keeping safe. They have a variety of solutions, low starting prices. No job is too small or too large. Give them a call, 915-590-0033. That's 915-590-0033. New installations happening around our offices with their security, bringing some of our things up into the 21st century. And we got more to come. We'll be talking more about that. But again, give them a call to find out your security solutions today, 915-590-0033.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
An earlier crash, I-10 eastbound at McRae, seems to be off to the right, but they're still slowing all the way back to Airway on and off with some delays. The delays continue to stack up on the I-10 eastbound in the Upper Valley from Vinton down to Sunland Park, 50-minute delays. And flooding reported in northeast El Paso. Police are on the scene, 11,000 block of Sean Haggerty Drive. Try to avoid that area. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Raid.
This can't keep your loved ones protected from pests, but Raid can. For 60 years, Raid scientists have worked to protect people around the world, including the ones you love most. Raid, protection for all.
On How Rude, Tanneritos, the Full House Rewatch podcast. Join characters Stephanie Tanner and Kimmy Gibbler, also known as actresses Jodie Sweetin and Andrea Barber, as they relive every episode of your favorite Friday night comfort show.
We spent our entire childhoods on a little show called Full House, playing frenemies, but becoming besties whenever the cameras weren't rolling. And now, 35 years later, it's our biggest adventure yet.
Listen to How Rude, Tanneritos on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
El Paso Electric is proud to present The Installers, live in your neighborhood. With their unique talent, they're bringing smart meters to every home and business and harmony to your electric bill. Smart meters give you the power to control energy use so you can rock and save every month. Let me see your hands in the air. Find your tour date at epelectric.com/smartmeters.
Your home is the place where you know your loved ones are secure. But the things that keep your home protected can't keep pests at bay. That's where Raid comes in. For 60 years, Raid scientists have worked to protect people around the world with trusted research, ingredients, testing standards, and product efficacy. Raid seeks to create a better future for all, especially the ones you love most. Raid, protection for all.
Blue Star medicated ointment gets 5-star reviews from our loyal users for fast relief of the pain and itch of almost any skin irritation.
Blue Star soothes insect bites and fungal infections.
It really works on the summer rashes I get every year.
I had psoriasis on my elbows. Blue Star worked wonders.
Amazing stuff. Smear a bit on and the itch is gone.
Look for the white box with the Blue Star in the first aid section. Feel Blue Star work fast or your money back.
180 over 111, and I had a stroke. I couldn't speak or walk.
This is high blood pressure. Get back on your plan. Go to loweryourhbp.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association, American Medical Association, and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show. Of course, we got the Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, phone lines full up at the moment. 915-544-5876, though, is the number to keep handy, and longtime listeners know. And a lot of interesting conversations going on in the comments, including, okay, you ever heard of the concept of stupid superpowers? Apparently mine is. Well, David Frigson asking me, how do I keep so calm when people make crazy/unfounded accusations towards me? How many stress balls do I go through in a day? So, none. I mean, I don't have any around me. I got some exercise stuff or sitting at a desk too long. But there's a concept out there of being anti-fragile. That's okay. What is fragility? It means that you crack, stress marks or break under pressure. And I both work to train myself, but also you just find myself naturally inclined towards being anti-fragile, meaning that under pressure, I find myself responding more robustly. Let's put it that way. So that's a short answer that might not be totally satisfying, but I seem to enjoy it, so I don't know if maybe I'm just more doing mansplaining of masochism from a different aspect. In any case, I do seem to be a glutton for the punishment, which is why we'll keep going back to those phone lines. Right now, we do have on the line with us Frankie and Messia with us right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
I can't get over this. I was totally nonplussed. I think you help me with this, Andrew. But after I talked with you, there was another caller that came on, and she sounded like Barbara from KTSM El Paso, and this Barbara was from Cloudcroft, New Mexico. Is it the same Barbara?
I do believe so, yes.
Unbelievable. She is in New Mexico? In Cloudcroft, the land of enchantment?
Apparently.
Is that right?
That does seem to be the case.
Oh, my God. Maybe she can explain how in the world she gravitates from conservative Texas to the land of blue, liberal New Mexico. I would love to hear her say that. Anyway, that's my opening comment. But let me say this.
Fair enough.
Right out of the box. Listen, I want everybody to understand this in the Southwest Florida region, especially Marco. Marco, I love the fact that you are participating in the democratic process of our beautiful nation here. I am no way beating up on you, degrading you, or demeaning you. I just like to point out the particular facts the way I see it in your circumstance why you want to run for mayor. But there's nothing that I'm saying to you that is supposed to be a degradation regarding your thought process in running for mayor up. Go for it, baby. Just go for it. Now, having said that,
sure.
I'm loving the heck out of this. This Donnie Dotar doofus for another indictment, 4 charges on this local indictment, and I just don't get. And you, Andrew, everybody out there, what is happening out here in the United States of America, where you got so many people that put up with this guy's attitude, his thought process, and think this is normal. I can't get this. No matter how many times I think through this, I can't get this out of my. What is the matter with people that support this guy? And that's my point. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think that's more complicated of an issue than one local radio talk show could take on every day. And no, we're not trying to relitigate this issue today, and Friday is always coming. I'll say this. I've often mentioned about a misunderstanding of his support networks that, I mean, previously, think about it. I often bring up Michael Dukakis, but I'll pick on someone else here today. John Edwards, I think, as maybe you even brought up the other day, that, I mean, it was a significant scandal. I mean, sure, that ended up putting the kibosh in his career, you know, mistress, trial out of wedlock, that kind of stuff, or at least allegations coming out of it. And some people may say, well, why has this been different? Because it's a misunderstanding of the support network for the former president, because that's the kind of thing that would have made someone completely disappear from national public life. I'm sure they may be doing something. I haven't really kept up with John Edwards or the psychic for that matter in recent years. Don't really pay much attention to either of them, but I'll just say this, that it's an expectation. It has previously been one that, based on the way, you know, public support, the primary process and the selection of it. I mean, the primaries are a glorified popularity process with a certain subset of the population, those that are active within their parties. And that has meant that if you're doing things that would be seen as unpopular, you're definitely going to be having impacts on you. And the fact that the former president has continued to defy that type of influence, issues, the legacy of the way these things have previously worked, just kind of bucking that whole trend, has continued to cause frustration for some and glee to others. I understand that entirely, but I know that there are some out there that are going to be considering themselves diehard Trumpers, diehard, you know, ride or die for the former president, and that's one thing. But I think there's more people out there that go along with the lesser of two evils type of mentality, which is not the best analysis in my mind, but I understand why it's pervasive. The idea that, well, I may not like the guy, but I prefer him over the other one. That's a whole damn argument about why the 2020 election went the way it is. So I'll just put it that way.
No, I hear what you say, but I think the operative term on what you just said, defy, that word, defy. What is the thought process about? There are so many moving parts relative to this whole operation, everything that's going on with it. to our fellow Americans that could support such a horrendous individual like this blows my mind. And I don't know. You know somebody. I don't get somebody on your radio program. I don't know, psychiatrist, psychologist. I don't care what the heck it is. And try to define what it is that he is so. His ability to be able to be so entranced, to cause people to be so entranced with this guy. That's my point. Anyway, you have a great day, Andrew.
Yeah, well, sure thing. Thanks for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Okay, take care.
And with that, we got to take that next break right now, get a little bit back on track. We got calls on the line. We'll get to the ones that we can after this break. Again, that number to call, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back out for this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
I'm Fidel Moreno Mesa with your CBS 4 News Update. The man accused of shooting and killing an El Paso County Sheriff's deputy took the witness stand on Tuesday on the 5th day of the ongoing capital murder trial. The defense team for Facundo Chavez placed him on the witness stand as their first witness. The defense argued that Chavez did not act randomly, but rather that he acted based on information given to him from his then girlfriend, Arlene Piña. At 9:35 in the morning, Chavez took the stand as his attorney, Luis Lopez, asked him to tell the jury about he and Piña's relationship. Chavez testified to having met Piña in December of 2016 through a friend of a friend and began dating her in December of 2017. Chavez said that he and Piña were together up until March of 2019. Chavez testified that he was on probation when he shot Deputy Herrera and that he had worked out a plea deal to serve 2 years in prison for previous crimes when he was scheduled to turn himself in. The trial continues today. We'll, of course, bring you more updates as we get them.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
An earlier crash, I-10 eastbound at McRae, seems to be off to the right, but they're still slowing all the way back to Airway on and off with some delays. The delays continue to stack up on the I-10 eastbound in the Upper Valley from Vinton down to Sunland Park, 50-minute delays. And flooding reported in northeast El Paso. Police are on the scene, 11,000 block of Sean Haggerty Drive. Try to avoid that area. Gary Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Hotter temperatures are going to be returning, weather warned beginning Friday for heat. Heat advisory going into effect Friday morning. We have an excessive heat watch that's going to be going into effect for your Saturday. 103 for your Thursday, 10% chance of a storm. We'll see a 10% chance of a storm, high of 106 for your Friday, and 108 for your Saturday with partly cloudy skies. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso, weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM, brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m., and let's talk El Paso.
I'm back to doing what I love and more, thanks to the Good Feet store.
Nice weather has finally arrived, and that means it's time for flip-flops, sandals, and sneakers. But for some people, it's the season for painful feet. Hi, this is Mike with the Good Feet store. To avoid painful feet, we recommend a good shoe and having great support in that shoe. Our patented arch support system has helped countless people find relief, like Karen. Listen to her real Good Feet story.
After I decided my pain was too much, and my doctor actually suggested that I do visit the Good Feet store. Pretty amazing when they put the arch supports in your shoe and you walk around and you realize there's not pain, and you think, how can this arch support in my shoe make my back pain go away? But it works. And how can it make my knee pain go away? It was incredible.
Thanks to the Good Feet store.
Schedule your appointment today at goodfeet.com.
Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's. This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later.
Text and whatever. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of people tuning in, chiming in, adding their 2 cents over there, including Rick Reyes, James Radcliffe, RJ, Amber Banda, Ion Graham, Robbie Flores, Monica Cervantes, and Ida Beza Gardner. Well, those dropping those likes and reacts anyway, which we do appreciate. And a lot of other commentary, including about recent elections, about where people live and their qualifications, and the reason people like or don't like them. How other people let the chips fall right off the shoulder, as well as more than a couple of insults. But hey, we call it the Thunderdome of comments, particularly on the Facebook, for a reason, as squeezing in the calls that we can. Again, that number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. And let's just jump right in and get into what we can before the end of the program here. So we do have Jerry in Northwest in line with us here right now. Jerry, thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking my call.
Yeah, sure thing. What's on your mind?
First, I want to address, I forgot his name now. The man that's running going to be running for mayor.
Marco.
Okay. Marco, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
Marco, one of the first things that get people elected is name recognition. So if I can't remember your name, you have a problem with name recognition. Okay, it
Fair
doesn't
enough.
matter, everybody's heard of George Washington, but nobody's heard of Marco from Central El Paso. So, Marco, the second thing is you need to change some of your policies. One of the first things is the city problem with this gas stuff is there was no regulations or
Sure.
guidance issues off of it. Easy solution, easy fix. There is an app on the phone that can track the miles when people are used for official business, just like they use it in business, a regular business.
Mm-hmm.
If I have a business that I deliver pizzas, I can get on that app and I can plug it in. Okay, I'm starting now. I'm driving to work. That's part of my business-related deductions. And every time I get in that car and drive, it records my miles. All I got to do is put in the starting miles when I start,
Sure.
and it goes from there.
Hell,
Easy fix.
Hell, you can do that.
Fix.
You can do that with a pen and paper. I did that for years in various different business circumstances. So, sure, apps, make it simple, make it stupid proof as much as possible. But I mean, just do the way you do it for IRS filings. Oh yeah, this is the mileage I'm claiming this year. Okay, how do you claim that based on all the numbers I took down when conducting business? The problem and the reason that this is the whole kerfuffle that it is that there was no policy, at the very least none that was actually flipping written down anywhere. If there was a handshake agreement, I think I can't remember if Texas is one of those that recognizes verbal contracts as being legally binding as long as both parties admit that it exists. But still, come on, we can definitely do better than this. The fact that this has been an issue is just one of the heights of stupidity we've encountered in the last, well, I don't want to get too grandiose, but let's just call it in recent history.
Okay, yeah, well, that's true, and there's other things out there that
sure.
I have a lot of solutions to. Okay,
fair enough.
Now I'm not the genius some people think I am. Just because I can run a car off of hydrogen doesn't make me a genius. Anyway, there's other things out there that's going on also.
Sure.
This deal with the Samaniego sending a letter to the governor. The governor actually gave a letter to the president when he showed up. Do you remember this?
Oh yeah, I was there, if not part of the conversation. I was a couple dozen yards away from the plane.
The state has been trying to talk to the feds. The feds have been turning their back on the state for over 2 years or 3 years. The president's been in charge. President Biden's been in charge. And this all started when candidate Biden said, okay, the borders will be open when I become president. Start coming up. And that was in December. And that was in December of 2020 when he said that. So all this problem with the migration started then. And it's not a problem that the governor of the state of Texas created. He's trying to stop the problem. He's trying to fix the leak in the boat. But when you have people that don't want to fix the leak, they want more water to come into the boat, it's going to sink. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So
I get you the analogy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those are things that are way above some of the people's understanding out here. And the other deal is, did you know that President Trump called or tried to bring in the National Guard on January 4th of 2021 to the Capitol?
One of the things that has come out about this, about the plans and who was in place and who called what at that point here. Sure.
Okay, so and he didn't have the authority to do it, though, because it takes the mayor and the person that's in charge of security at the Capitol, which at the time it was the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi. So she refused it, and the mayor refused it. The mayor of Washington, D.C. refused it. He offered 10,000 National Guard troops on January 4th. Does that sound like a man that's trying to overthrow the federal government?
Okay, like I said, we're getting into definitely Friday territory, but I will say
that's because all of this, Andrew, happened yesterday with the deal.
Sure, I mean it definitely did.
I'm just carrying on.
I understand.
I didn't get a chance to talk yesterday, so I'm trying to get my turn to talk on.
Fair enough.
What's going on with that?
I mean, we didn't end up addressing it yesterday. I fully agree with that and understand.
Yes. Anyway, Marco, I would like to talk with you about running for mayor because I got some, I'm smarter than the average bear, as Yogi Bear used to say.
Fair
anyway,
enough.
Tomorrow, tell me what restaurant you're at, and I'll go talk with you.
I think he's on hiatus there at the moment, but I mean to stop by one of these times here as well. So I appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Thank you, sir. You too.
All right, and with that, we got to take that next break right now if I'm going to hope to make the last one here. So we're going to take that break, come back to what we got working on for you here on the show, because we do have some significant dates coming up, among other things. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
That earlier crash on I-10 eastbound at McRae is cleared. All lanes are back open, but there's a new accident in the lower valley, I-10 eastbound at East Lake. Now that's off to the right. All lanes are open there. Slow traffic on I-10 eastbound. It's a 50-minute delay, 5-0, between Vinton and Sunland Park. A lot of slow and go traffic on the I-10 eastbound this afternoon. Montana eastbound is slow, 10-minute delays. McRae out to Desert Meadow. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Wendy's Late Night, open until midnight or later. Wendy's is open until midnight or later, which means all your favorite menu items are up later too. The Baconator still tastes just as juicy and bacony at night. So listen to that craving and turn in for the night at a Wendy's drive-thru. Hours may vary at participating U.S. Wendy's.
In today's Marketers Report, Kate Cronin, Chief Brand Officer of Moderna, weighs in on the speed of audio production.
In this day and age, and particularly at Moderna, where we have new information coming out on a regular basis, being able to feed that information to the audio format makes being nimble and pivoting easy, and that's what I really like about it.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives marketers access to the audiences, influencers, insights, and data you need to grow. If you're a marketer, go to iHeartResults.com.
Protection for all, peace of mind for you.
For over 40 years, Mazer Security Alarms has proudly served El Paso with superior service and protection. Locally owned and operated, Mazer Security Alarms created Super Switch technology to prevent false alarms and keep your business and family safe. You can afford the best. For your free quote or to upgrade your existing system, call Mazer Security Alarms at 915-590-0033. That's 915-590-0033. Mazer Security Alarms.
Hey, you know what I don't get? Why is that company always telling you to just do what? What is it? To just look like everybody else? Or maybe just pay way too much for your shoes? Well, at Skechers, we know what we want you to do. Just slip in. That's right, just slip in to new hands-free Skechers slip-ins. Why? Because slip-ins are the easiest, most comfortable shoes ever. You don't have to bend down to put them on. You don't even have to touch them. Find slip-ins for the whole family at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
This your captain. Better buckle your seatbelts for this one. I saw my passport expired, so I went to Staples, got a passport photo lickety-split. While I was there, I grabbed some tiny travel soap and shampoo. I should have got some from my co-pilot. Just kidding, Brad.
Staples has everything for travel. 10-minute passport photos, luggage, headphones, even personal travel items. And now at Staples, get $10 off your purchase of $30 or more when you buy a travel service. Staples, your first stop to nonstop travel. Ends 9/16. In-store only. Exclusions apply.
Did you know that only 2 in 10 El Paso County students graduate with a bachelor's degree? By supporting Border Youth Athletic Association's mission of educational attainment, you will create a long-lasting impact in our students' lives. Your monthly donation enables 4th through 12th grade students access to after-school programs, providing a safe and healthy environment. BYAA engages and empowers El Paso's future through mentorship and leadership development. We believe every player who gets an education wins. Do you? Go to borderyouth.org and show your support for our youth today.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Covered a lot of ground today, as I am sure we will tomorrow, as we do every Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. And the comments, I know I've mentioned a few of them here, but they always go on way too fast and furious than I can even keep track of sometimes. Like most recently, a discussion also about hydrogen cars going on. So, yeah, that's just a case in point, I do suppose, and others chiming in to appreciate that and the feedback. But some of the things we're working on for you, of course, tomorrow is a very significant day in the Borderland community. We'll be talking about that, and particularly the concept of trauma anniversaries and how there's no right or wrong way to deal with days like that. But there's a whole lot more that we're also working on for you, including more economic development stuff going on here in the Borderland region. Also then with the development of hospitals and how the El Paso Children's Hospital overcame some of those very serious issues that I've did some reporting back on in the day, but we'll have to leave it there for today because we are out of time here for this program. So I do want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. If you really wanted to talk about it, and I do appreciate those that particularly, Monday through Thursday, talk about the local stuff, but of course, Friday's always coming. So if you all want to talk about the things going on affecting us here in the Borderland, or that we definitely need to have more conversation about, that's what we're here for. So until then, until next time, want to tell you all to stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, if we've got any of that weather problems going on with you right now. And of course, have a great evening. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
A 4-vehicle accident in the lower valley is all off to the right. I-10 eastbound at East Lake. Watch for some slowing there. Slow traffic for sure on the I-10 eastbound Vinton from the upper valley all the way down to Sunland Park. It's close to an hour delay. Just a reminder, westbound Trans Mountain at the I-10 eastbound transition ramp still closed for road work, and Montana eastbound is slow from McRae out to Zaragoza. 13-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Recently, we hit the streets and found out how informed people really are.
Yes, I'm on top of events.
Most news, yes.
Except for these two.
I am not on top of events.
I'm not on top of my events, no.
They were clueless that every morning they can plug into the world with the news, weather, and traffic info that'll make their lives so much easier and more informed. Just like you and I do. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
My friend and I are taking a trip to Mexico this year, but neither of us speak Spanish. So we downloaded Babbel and started learning Spanish fast.
Want to start getting conversational in another language in as little as 3 weeks? Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons were designed by language experts to be the most efficient and effective way to learn a new language.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿De dónde eres?
¿De dónde eres?
Babbel's interactive lessons are created by real language teachers and voiced by real native speakers using a modern conversation-based method. So in no time, you can start speaking confidently about real-life topics in another language.
Nosotras vamos a México en 2 días y ahora hablamos español. Gracias, Babbel. Sí, muchas gracias.
Babbel, language for life. Celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at babbel.com. Just go to babbel.com and start learning a new language today. That's babbel.com. BABBEL.com.
Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio, 690 KTSM. News on the hour and the half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. Former President Trump is due to be arraigned tomorrow in Washington, D.C. after being indicted on election interference charges that culminated in the January 6th Capitol riot. John Lauro, one of Trump's attorneys, says Trump and his legal team have the right to take their time in preparing for trial.
If you want to seek justice, then you need to offer President Trump an opportunity to get a hold of all the evidence and understand what the facts are.
Lauro says Trump's legal team will relitigate every single issue in the 2020 election. Special counsel Jack Smith said yesterday that he would like to see a speedy trial, which would be 70 days from now. Trump is scheduled to appear at the D.C. courthouse tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. U.S. gas prices continue to climb as the summer heats up. AAA says there are a variety of factors affecting price, but two main reasons are causing a spike. Global supply is constrained after OPEC nations cut production. Russia is also exporting less crude oil. Beyond economic manipulation, this summer's record heat is also to blame. U.S. officials are proposing a multinational police force to deal with Haitian gangs. Lisa Taylor has more.
In a press conference, U.S. Ambassador